All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights.
Life, liberty, and the
If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear.
Make America great again.
The Big Mig.
Welcome back to the Big Mig Show. Of course, I'm your host, Lance Migliaccio, with my co-host, George Ballantyne. It's rise and grind, tip of the spear. Of course, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. George B., it's Monday morning. We're back at the grind. What's up, brother? How are you, man?
I'm okay. It's Monday morning.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
It was all right. Worked.
Yeah, you had a lot of work this weekend, didn't you?
Work, and Easter with family.
Yep. Well, you know, again, hopefully you guys all enjoyed your weekend. We're always grinding away. Even on the weekends, we've got quite a bit to do to get ready for the upcoming week. And as always, if you love the show, you guys know the drill. Hit that thumbs up, hit the comment, get in there and reply. Don't be shy. Get in the chat. Let us know if you're new to the show. We're getting lots of new followers, and we really appreciate that. We've been one of the fastest growing shows on Rumble because of it. So thank you so very much. And if you aren't following already, you know, please hit the follow. If you can do the paid subscription for $5 a month, greatly appreciated. It all adds up. You can gift subscriptions. And don't forget, you can also check out Rumble Premium. It comes with Perplexity. So if you're paying for Perplexity somewhere else, maybe cancel that subscription, come over here to Rumble, get it here. And that way you get Perplexity with your Rumble. You kind of get a bonus package. So check it out. And of course, we appreciate all the support on our regular social media. You can find us on X at Lance Migliaccio, G Ballantyne, and the Big Mig Show. Listen, let's give a shout out to one of our sponsors. Of course, I'm talking about the guys at Genesis Gold Group, holding up that prepper bar. These are your perfect escape. They're real, tangible forms of wealth. Gold and silver you can hold, trade, and trust. No government can seize it. No hacker can steal it. Time is always ticking. And of course, you need to act now to secure your prepper bars before the government rolls out their next move. Of course, with $40 trillion in debt and counting, who knows what's going to happen to the U.S. dollar in the long term. I know you guys are going to say, oh, Donald Trump's in the White House. I don't know if that's a complete solution. You don't want to wait until your money's worthless. You always want to have a backup plan. I always believe you should have a plan A, B, C, D. And, of course, the prepper bars are available over at thebigmigbar.com. That's right, thebigmigbar.com. Or you can call the guys at Genesis at 888-526-7154, 888-526-7154. Or George makes it easy for you. There's a QR code. Take a snapshot. Go there after the show. Don't go now, of course. Thebigmigbar.com.
Break me off a piece of that prepper bar.
All right. Listen, as always, you know, we're always digging around, always trying to find top stories, top guests, you name it. That's why you're here. Hopefully we've done the heavy lifting for you. Today won't be any different. We've got Gregory Lyakhov. Hopefully I didn't butcher his name. Joining us, and he's America's youngest nationally syndicated columnist. You know, he's a conservative political commentator and advocate for education, reform, school choice, and strong U.S. Israel relations. His work regularly appears in Newsmax, Townhall, the Gateway Pundit, New York Post, The Hill, the Wall Street Journal, and other major outlets. He's a former Turning Point USA speaker. He's a frequent guest on Fox News. And, of course, he's a passionate voice against anti-Semitism. Great kid. I talked to him the other day. I was impressed immediately with his mental aptitude and his comprehension of seeing the big picture. You know, a lot of times we talk to people that are going to come on the show, and it's interesting. I don't know if every one of them sees the big picture, but I got to say that Gregory does. Let's get him in here, George. He's backstage. No reason to leave him back there.
All right, welcome to the Big Mig Show, Gregory. I'm not going to say your last name till you tell me how you pronounce it.
Yeah, you actually were probably one of the first people to pronounce it right. It's Lyakhov, so good job.
Good. That's great. You never know. Of course, my name gets butchered quite a bit, and so does George's. Usually at the airport, I'm Mr. Muchacho. So when they call me to the podium, you never really know what you're going to get. Listen, you know, interesting. First of all, thanks so very much for joining us, taking the time. We always say on this show, time is the most valuable commodity any of us have, because of course that is always going against you. We're all getting older. We're all trying to do what we can. I always like to start off interviews and ask the guests, you know, really unusual for a person your age, especially. And I'm just wondering what made you decide that you couldn't sit on the sidelines? Because, of course, most young people are more preoccupied with, what's going to happen, in their personal lives as far as where they're going, what kind of cell phone they're using, how they're dressing. They're not really concerned with politics or concerned about the direction the country they're living in is taking. So give me the starting point. First of all, how early, how soon, and were your parents political?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll just give you, the speech of my life, I guess. So for 16 years, I had undiagnosed ADHD, which meant for me that I couldn't read, I couldn't write. Like I've never read a book until basically a year ago, and that really was probably the first 16 years of my life. It was the starting point. So when I got diagnosed, when I actually got the treatment I needed, and I was able to read a book, the first book I read was One Vote Away by Ted Cruz. It was obviously a very political book. Now, my dad is probably the most political in our family. He's not very political, but he likes law and he finds it interesting. So I read one of his books, which was One Vote Away, or a book that he read, and it changed my life. It gave me the passion to pursue something bigger than myself. And after that, I've just continued and continued. And I really don't know why politics in particular is what I'm so passionate about, but it's something I just can't give up. Definitely something that was influenced probably by my family members. While they're, again, not very political, all of them have, passions in very similar areas. So yeah, I really don't know why I chose politics in particular to pursue, but I've just been very interested in it for, the last year, I guess.
Yeah.
Wait, Lance, hold on.
Yeah, George, please go ahead.
You and me got a lot in common, kid, because I got ADHD. I went undiagnosed. I don't know for how long. They didn't even really know too much about it when I was growing up. But I know it's like I take meds. It's like night and day. But
yeah, it changed my life.
Yeah. I pick up a book and I want to put it down. So I have a question. Are your parents liberal or Republican?
So my parents are more Republican leaning, but I wouldn't say that my views with my parents align on many issues. So, I don't most people say that, your parents are the ones that are, influencing your political views the most. I take it the other way because I try to, make my parents' political views influence me as least as possible. So in school, there's like literal programs that I go to just because the kids there are more liberal leaning. And, that's the way I surround myself because I don't want to be just, fed an echo chamber.
Yeah. So are you a junior or a senior in high school?
I'm currently a senior.
A senior. Okay. It's interesting. Of course, that doesn't surprise me about the kids. I'm not really a fan of what's going on in our education system. And you actually are really concerned about that yourself. One of the things I've talked about on the show many times is that the education system right now, there's a lot of flaws. The Board of Education, ever since it got involved in our school system, let's face it, the numbers have gone way down. We're not seeing a high level of reading or arithmetic. People are your age are normally more concerned with whether or not they can do the next challenge on TikTok. Some of those challenges are destructive. I've never really liked the platform. George was hopeful. He got suspended a couple of times just for putting out just general content. We've been pretty sensitive about getting suspended. We got suspended on X and we got suspended on YouTube. And most of that was just for transmitting things like CDC information or VAERS information or bringing out any actual facts about election integrity. The kids around you, I have to imagine that, you've got a lot of notoriety. They probably know your belief system. You find yourself having to get in dialogue with the kids around you very often. Is that a requirement? And, how much of that, do you find more complicated than you would if you just went along with the narrative like, hey, I think I'll go look at the new toilet licking challenge on TikTok?
Yeah. Well, I think it's both ways. So I always try to instigate dialogue within kids because I think the number one issue in our school education system today is that politics is censored on both sides. It's just controversy, so people prefer not to go into controversy. It brings parents involved. No one likes it. So I always try to start as many conversations as possible, and most kids don't want to start those conversations because they tend to be significantly less knowledgeable about certain topics and just, go with the mainstream, which is very hard to defend sometimes. But I definitely have had experiences where, because of my political views, for example, abortion is probably the biggest one. People are just so, astounded by my political views or my certain moral beliefs on certain issues that they won't even have discussions, and they would immediately go to judgment. And that is probably the worst thing to happen, when people just, judge you instead of actually listening to you. Because when you hear me talk about a certain issue, it's much easier to understand where I'm coming from and understand how I'm not very crazy about this certain issue than it is to just be astounded and to, cancel me immediately, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Normally the difficulty comes with engaging people that aren't well educated or well read. That's the hard part, because a lot of times they have taken one piece of information and that becomes their entire dialogue of a discourse. And of course, a lot of times, just like us, you have to go to every single source. The narratives are so clearly controlled in a lot of ways online. It makes it complicated to really get down to the truth. And it's worse now with AI. It's even more complicated. Sometimes you see something come up and you wonder, God, is that legitimate? And it's going to get harder and harder as AI becomes more sophisticated. But let's talk about education.
Hey, Lance, I have a question from the chat, and I wanted to ask him this too. Are you Turning Point? Are you involved in Turning Point at school?
So in school, no, my school doesn't actually have a Turning Point USA club, but if it did, I would definitely obviously
Why
be
don't you
involved.
start one, bro?
I just don't have the time. There are other kids though that I'm helping with to start a Turning Point USA club in our school.
Where do you live? What state you live in?
New York.
Oh, you live right by me. I'm in North Jersey, right over the bridge.
Nice. It's not a good place to live.
What?
Well,
New York.
Oh yeah, hell no, yeah.
Politically, it's complicated. It's not the New York.
Politically, it's more than politically, bro. It's not even safe anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's so different. I grew up, it was a different time period, different belief system. It's tough for me to look at it now. I grew up in Fort Rowan, the Bronx, and my parents made a little bit of money and we moved to White Plains. I think their first house was $9,600 or something to that effect. Of course, it's different now, much more expensive. You've got a mayor that I can't even imagine, how that happened. I don't like anything about him. And even now, you have to wonder what's going to happen, because of course it's always been one of the greatest cities in the world, and it no longer is. And that's got to be tough living there, even in your time period. But your parents, how long have your parents lived in New York?
My parents lived here. They moved from the Soviet Union here, I believe in 1990 or 1991.
Yeah, so even 1990, 91, New York was still a great place. Really, a lot of options, lots of possibilities. And of course, not so much now. And, it's interesting that when a state goes completely blue, that impact, and when it really goes to the far end of that. And of course, there's justification, some of the violence and the fact that they want to blame shift the violence.
You live in Brighton Beach?
No, I don't. I don't live in the city. I live in Great Neck, right outside the city.
Oh, all right, even better. Yeah.
So let's talk about education reform and school choice. Of course, like I said a minute ago, federal bureaucracy in our school system has damaged it in ways that are just unimaginable.
Yeah.
And then teachers unions, and of course, the parents that seem to get involved a lot of times do more harm than good. Let's talk about some of the stuff that you like to discuss. I looked at your social media. I watched some of your other interviews. You have some really strong opinions about that. And it's interesting because as a student, often it's not the students that have a strong opinion. It's the rest of the system. The students just seem to go along with the status quo. I was never a status quo kid. I was always why. I always questioned authority. I questioned what was going on. If I didn't like something, I was very verbal. It got me in trouble many times because I would go up against the teachers. I went to a Lutheran grade school and then an all-boys Catholic high school, which was interesting because my mom was Jewish. So, of course, it was interesting that I didn't go to a school system that embraced that. It's kind of the other end of it. Let's talk about your opinions because, of course, this is really unique. Most kids, they don't seem to give a shit.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think you laid it out there perfectly in that the federal bureaucracy and the teachers' unions are the two things that hurt the education system most. And I'll give you an example. Like we brought up New York City before. The group and organization who funded the mayoral race of Zoran Mamdani ever since he won the Democrat primary, which I believe was in June of last year, was the teachers' unions. The teachers' unions funded his race. So when we have the teachers' unions funding a complete socialist who in practice as a communist, what can we expect to happen? And what we expect is what did happen, where Zoran Mamdani not only now controls the city, but still has overwhelming public approval because the teachers' unions pump out his voter base. The teachers' unions pump out kids that are socialists, that are communists, and that's how, Zoran Mamdani won the election. So, these teachers' unions in general have catered the education system towards the teachers rather than the students. And we have, the American Federation for Teachers lobbying in education and being the biggest lobby group in education, rather than the American Federation for Students being the bigger lobby for education. And this has made our entire education system be funded probably double the amount since it was funded in, the 1990s. And the performance is not any better. So we're just pumping more money into a system that doesn't work. There's absolutely no proof that the public education works better than the private sector. And we just continue funding and funding and funding until, some politician pumps out statistics that are literally fake because we decreased our standards as a state, and then people elect those politicians and education is kind of ignored. So it's a really big issue right now, and it's one of the biggest ways our federal government is wasting money. We're wasting money. We're putting like $400 billion into a bureaucracy that doesn't work, that doesn't help the K-12 level, that is completely corrupt, and then we expect the education system to do better. Obviously, it's not going to do better.
Yeah. The priority, it seems like we've got this kind of recurring theme in the school system that political activism, whether it's anti-ICE or DEI or, LGBTQ, whatever, plus. I'm not even sure how many letters they've added to it recently. Even trans ideology, it's overwhelming when, of course, what you really should be doing there is teaching basics, right? I went to college preparatory school, and of course it was focused on making sure that you were going to crush your SATs. The priority was to raise children and give them all the tools they would need to be successful later in life. But that's not what's happening, and I don't know how much of that, George. You didn't. I'm sure you went to the same kind of schools I did. Did you? Do you feel like there's any comparison to what we as children went through versus what's going on now?
Is there any comparison? No, we didn't go through all the crazy shit they're going through today. They taught us about, they taught us math. Because liberals say math is racist. They taught us about history. You stood for the flag every day, pledge allegiance. I mean, I went to, high school, I went to Catholic school, so you add prayer to that. I mean, they taught us all the fundamentals, all the stuff to prepare you for school, not the crap they're trying to do today. They just want to confuse the kids. They want to dumb down society, because when you have a dumb society, that's how you have more control. I mean, one of the reasons like Russia fell from communism is because the people got educated and they knew what was going on. They realized communism, they don't want that crap. So,
that's a great segue. It sounds like as many Russians did in the 90s that they wanted to flee communism. How do your parents feel? They moved here to get away from socialism, from communism, and to make a better life for themselves and eventually for you. They've got to be looking at what's going on in New York and going, holy shit, what the hell are these people thinking? Well, if anybody interviewed your parents, I'm sure they could give you a very easy set of reasons as to why communism doesn't work. How are they feeling about what's happened in New York after moving there to get away from it?
Yeah, definitely. So I want to say my parents have been seeing this for a long time. It hasn't been a shock with Zoran Mamdani. The Democrat Party has been communist for much longer than we have discussed it, because we had people like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. They were in Congress since 2018, and no one was talking about them. And that is a big issue, that the Democrat Party has embraced communism. The Democrat Party has embraced socialism. And these theories that are very self-destructive are embraced by the Democrats now. A mainstream, position of many Democrats and the more reasonable Republicans. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but in this case of more reasonable, I'm saying like Chuck Schumer and Cory Booker, they're forced to embrace this ideology. And if they don't, then they're going to lose all of their public support. So this entire party is being corrupted by these ideas. And my parents have seen that. That's exactly how communism and socialism got popular all around the world, including in the Soviet Union, including in, including in Europe. And we have seen socialism in other places fail. We just saw in Venezuela how Trump took out Maduro in January. That was also a socialist country. So this entire idea that socialism or communism can work is just completely false. It's based off principles that are complete, BS. The organizations that have been funding these things are just trying to feed a mainstream narrative so that people can be controlled by the Democrat Party. And when you control people, when people are reliant on you, when people are reliant on a big government, on getting free things from the government, then they're going to be forced, not only inclined, but forced to vote for you.
Yeah. And, I wonder, the kids around you, do they realize that this is a brainwashing operation? Because division and chaos is a tool. I always talk about the uniparty in DC. As you know, on this show, we go after both sides of the aisle. I don't protect either side. I don't blindly, or neither does George, blindly follow Donald Trump. If I don't agree with something he's doing, an ideology, a policy, or even an employee in the administration, we'll call him out. I dare him to come on this show, and because I won't softball it. That's probably why they won't come on the show. Of course, the restrictions, a lot of those come from Susie Wiles. We had a lot of great interviews lined up, and then Susie Wiles brought down that policy, not specifically against us, but policy of picking and choosing and deciding what shows you're allowed to do. They continue to embrace mainstream media. But do the kids around you have any idea that this brainwashing operation, because of course, as we grew up, and still even now, it's incredible when they push the trans ideology or other ideologies, because that portion of the segment of the population is extremely small, but they act as if that those numbers are excessively large, and they're not. Do the kids? I mean, if you were going to give me out of for 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, how many of the kids recognize and are saying bullshit? This isn't right. How many of them get it?
Yeah, I would say probably 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10 is a good number because, again, most of the kids have never even heard of who the vice president is. Most of the kids don't even know how the U.S. government works, that we have 3 branches of government. And if you don't know how many branches of government you work, then you're just completely not engaged in politics. So the concern there becomes that these kids who are in high school right now, who are going to be able to vote in less than a year for many of them, they're going to go into a university or a college that is extremely left-leaning. That is left-leaning to the point where their professors are going to be demonizing conservatism, demonizing conservatives in particular. So, that's the real political socialization. That's the first political socialization that they're going to get in these liberal-leaning, extremely, Marxist universities. And when you are only exposed to this left-leaning university type feeling, then you are going to be inclined to be left-leaning. You are going to be forced to be left-leaning. So it's, this common trend where we don't educate until your last year of high school. And then when you go to a university, you're just going to be fed liberal-leaning talking points and not seeing the other side. And that's a Democrat for life. That's how these Democrats are pumped out of the system. So we see more and more continuously people going to college, going to left-leaning universities, even though now going to college doesn't necessarily help you in any way, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a better career in many factors. So that, you're still going to the school, you're going into massive debt, then you're a liberal, and then you're going to be forced to rely on the federal government for your subsidies that you're going to be getting from the federal government. It is a chain that starts with the education system, and it has been going on for decades now, and no one has been discussing it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We see so much of it when you look at social media and you look at the influence and how easily people are, I want to say tricked. We call it the David Copperfield, look over here while the sleight of hand's over here. And that's the tough part because the narrative control is so sophisticated. Are they even aware? For example, I've never been a fan of TikTok because I felt like the Chinese, if you looked at TikTok from China, completely different product than TikTok here in the U.S. China, they've got, contests, math contests, and physical fitness contests. Over here, as I mentioned earlier, it's licking a toilet. It's a dance in the aisles of Home Depot or other crap. But it's a powerful tool. Narrative control has been so sophisticated. Do any of them recognize that? Are they able to comprehend? Because of course, with limited education, if you've got some teacher who's got their entire room filled up with DEI agenda and they've got pink hair and other things, we never had that in my world. When I went to school, I never saw a teacher behaving like that. It was more neutral. Maybe they had political beliefs or, maybe ideologies outside of the school system. But when they came into the school system, I don't remember ever seeing any of that. I don't know that I ever had a teacher that had that kind of thing. Do they catch any of that? Do they even recognize that when they go to TikTok, that there's a good chance that most of the product they're seeing there is just total garbage?
Yeah, I mean, some yes, some no. It really depends on the level of intellect that these kids have gotten. But again, even whether they recognize it or whether they don't, they are all on TikTok. Every single person my age, maybe there's like 0.0005% that their parents don't let, go on TikTok. Everyone is on TikTok. So it is the perfect platform to brainwash all of this generation, and it kind of has been working, kind of has not. But look, if TikTok hasn't existed, it would be something else. It would be something else in the same level.
George says many times when I say let's get rid of TikTok, he says it doesn't matter, they're going to come up with something else.
Of course, and they already have YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels. All of them are the same. So
no,
of course,
no. TikTok, you could do a lot more with your videos, editing, and all that versus YouTube and all that stuff.
YouTube, the only reason why YouTube and Instagram Reels are less popular is because it is less user-friendly and it is harder to use. They're just worse platforms. So,
TikTok has a lot more features and stuff to your advantage.
Well, it's catered towards only videos. Instagram and YouTube Shorts are not. They're catered towards whether it's actual YouTube videos for YouTube, or on Instagram it's catered mostly towards Instagram posts. But I still they're all platforms made to do the exact same thing, made to get people addicted, made to get young people addicted in particular while their brains are still developing, stay on this addiction of shorts, videos, and they're just going to stay on it and get brainwashed or whatever this is. And the main issue with social media is that kids are not having fun. Kids are not going outside. Kids are not, socializing with others. They're socializing through social media. And that, is very obvious when you speak to a person my age, and it's going to result in things that you can't fix, whether it's like social cues or even eye contact that people just my age cannot fathom and cannot understand why it's important.
It's interesting that you say that. I've talked about this more than once on the show. Everybody, when I was young, the guys wanted to be what I guess people now would consider a toxic or alpha male. They wanted to be physically fit. They wanted to, be able to directly talk to somebody. I grew up mostly around adults as I was a child. My godfather was a capo for the Gambino crime family. I was drawn to it because one of their money laundering operations was a pet store, which as a child, I thought that was, incredible. I enjoyed it. Even George, he grew up around the car business, lots of, car people. And of course, those are relatively, from that time period, relatively aggressive individuals. George, you and I have discussed this. You go out and everybody's preoccupied with taking selfies or looking at their cell phones. You look at a table full of people, George, and everybody's looking at their phone, but yet they're right there. Nobody's engaging in conversation. Nobody's directly looking at the other person. They're more preoccupied. Hey, this is a great dessert. Let me get a photo of this for my social media. Which to me is such a tough thing. We didn't grow up with any of that. Of course, my first cell phone was one of those backpacks, and some Israelis reprogrammed it so I could get free minutes. A giant backpack, of course, and then the Motorola brick. George, what do you think? This is a discussion. I mean, I'm intrigued that you just brought that up. How much damage do you think's happening, George, because everybody's lost the ability to communicate?
How much damage?
Yeah.
Well, that's why you need safe spaces for these kids, because they don't know how to deal with their feelings, rejection. They don't know how to deal with anything. And I always say no kids should have any cell phones or social media, anything. Not at least till they're Probably shouldn't even have it in high school, but you know, that's a tough one. Maybe their senior year, you give them to them. You do good in school here, you can have a phone, social media, but otherwise, no, don't get it's ruining them. Because you might not know this, Gregory, but as us growing up, we were always outside. No matter what, there's always something to play, sports, do something, get in trouble. Not bad trouble, but you know, boys will be boys. Today, there's nothing. You never see kids outside. So how do they interact with each other? Unless they're playing a sport in school where they interact that way, what are they learning? Pretty much nothing as far as interaction. And
yeah, we were playing street hockey and stickball and
everything,
kickball and dodgeball. Listen, our parents had to be reminded, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? We were thrown out in the street, told to get out of the house. And then we were out there in New York, we were sweaty and dirty and we were out there just doing it. But we didn't have any of those distractions. TVs pretty much suck.
God forbid you tell a kid to drink water from a hose. Oh my God.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Rusty jungle gyms. You've seen some of the people online talking about how we were raised. And it's true. Maybe we were raised a little feral. But I think feral was kind of good in a way because, of course, it prepared you more. I think it's difficult. I watch the kids and I see everybody's worried about, Lance, improving their physical appearance by, adjusting their jaws and worrying about a clavicular. Is that how you pronounce his name? Probably some of the worst when it comes for jackassery, Kick, and some of the other platforms. I look at what they're doing on there and how this is where they want to spend their time, and these influencers. Probably one of the better ones is iShowSpeed, but there's so many of them that represent what I would consider just all the wrong things. George, you comment on that, and then we'll go back to Gregory.
Gregory said it well. He said it best earlier. The Democrats want bigger government. They want to give more programs to people. The more programs people depend on, the more control you have, and you're truly becoming their slaves. Whether they believe that or not, that's what you're doing. So why would you want anybody to have control over you? Listen, everybody needs a helping hand at a time. That's fine. Some people just can't work. That's all right. There's people like that. There's, food stamps to help people out and get people back on their feet in programs, but get them back on their feet and out there working so they don't have to depend on that. But the Democrats, they just want to do that. Can you imagine if we went to universal, what do they call that? The universal pay or whatever? That would be crazy. How would
everybody gets a check for doing nothing?
Yeah.
It's demotivating. We all wanted to hustle up. We were around Wall Street as kids, and otherwise we were looking and thinking, how do I get ahead? Because I didn't come from an affluent family. I came from a very lower middle class family that, we grounded out. And of course, we were all trying to figure out how we could lift ourselves. What were the opportunities and taking full advantage of that? All right. Gregory, give me your comments, and we'll go to break right after. Your thoughts on that was a lot of information we just peeled out.
Yeah.
There. Give me your thoughts, man.
Definitely. So, I would say I agree with what both of you are saying, in that, when you are reliant on the federal government, you are not motivated to go seek opportunity. You are not motivated to be something of yourself. And that is the biggest thing. It's your livelihood that the Democrats are taking away. The ability to do more than where you started off with, which is literally the American dream. It's what the Democrats are gambling on because they want you to be reliant on them as a party. And it has been working beautifully in most of these communities. And one of the main reasons why poor communities tend to continually stay poor is because they're reliant on this. They're not going to make anything of themselves if they don't have to.
Yeah, poor communities waking up because, they've been giving more money to the illegals over to poor communities. And I think they're getting tired of it too. So, teach their own.
Well, listen, we're going to take a short break here on the Big Mig show. We'll be right back with Gregory, George Ballantine, myself, Lance Migliaccio. There's more to come. We've got a lot to cover here. We're going to talk about immigration enforcement, anti-Semitism, and of course, got to talk about the Supreme Court, the weaponized judiciary. What are the results going to be of some of the latest? Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Don't go nowhere.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At CSPOA.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever. Visit CSPOA.org and join the Sheriff's Citizens Posse today. Make a difference. Stand for freedom. That's CSPOA.org. Your country, your fight, your future.
What if you could predict your financial future? And what if you could trade on it? Introducing Block Trust IRA, the future in your hands. An astonishing 88,000 millionaires were created last year from the Bitcoin boom, and you could be next. Block Trust IRA is the only crypto management firm powered by AI-driven strategies, ranked #1 in the world by Bitcoin Magazine. The Block Trust IRA platform is built for everyone, from first-time buyers to seasoned investors. Predictive AI technology that was once only reserved for insiders and elites is now available to you. It's time to leave the old buy and hold strategies behind. Your assets are protected with military-grade security, offline cold storage, and $200 million in insurance. Visit BlockTrustIRA.com to book your free consultation and ask how to claim up to $2,500 in deposit bonuses today. Bitcoin changed the game. AI changes the strategy.
Hi folks, I'm here today to introduce you to the Prepper Bar from PrepperBar.com, the most unique precious metals product we have seen in a long time. These 62-gram bars are perforated and easily broken down into your choice of 3 different sizes to fit a multitude of needs. Whether it be from asset protection from inflation, economic turmoil, or its unique utility for barter and trade, the Prepper Bar makes a perfect gift for all the precious metal lovers out there. Exclusively made here in the USA and selling out fast. Available in both gold and silver, these slim Prepper Bars fit neatly in your wallet, and their utility enables use in any situation.
Forged through rigorous training and honed by the finest instructors on earth, these canine units serve beside our nation's warriors as they fight to preserve what we cherish. When these warriors complete their duty, the Warrior Dog Foundation provides them with a home deserving of the service they've given us all. At our state-of-the-art kennels, they receive rehabilitation and care suitable for heroes, because that's what they are. Be a part of giving them a future today. Visit WarriorDogFoundation.org.
All right, welcome back to the Big Mig Show. Here are your hosts, Lance Migliaccio, George Ballantine, and our guest, Gregory Lyakhov. You know, we got the Big Mig Mafia in the chat, Big Mig Army. Matter of fact, Gregory, you are now Big Mig Mafia. We'll explain that to you in a few minutes. I don't know if you know, but we will tell you. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, like, follow, share, and subscribe. If you can do it for $5 a month, we truly appreciate it. It helps out. But you know what? I got to give a shout out to our sponsor, because Lance and I have the perfect solution for the people that can't watch their crypto 24/7. You know what I'm talking about? BlockTrustIRA.com. They're bringing access to cryptocurrency wealth to everyday people. Their exclusive Animus AI trading platform works 24/7, analyzing market data and executing advanced crypto strategies that go far beyond buy and hold. Now, this is sophisticated technology that was once reserved only for Wall Street insiders, but guess what? Now it's available to you. Our clients are already seeing over 250% returns on their investments, all military-grade security and up to $200 million insurance. Your wealth is fully protected, so don't wait. Visit BigMigCrypto.com today and see you can join this financial revolution. It's finally giving everyday Americans access to the crypto opportunity of a lifetime. Once again, visit BigMigCrypto.com today and you can get up to $2,500 of free crypto. QR code's right next to me. Take a screenshot, save it to your photo files. Links in the chat, links in the more section under the video. It's everywhere for you guys. All right, Greg. So our mods and the people in the chat coined themselves the Big Mig Mafia. So now anybody that comes on, they're automatically in the family. Now you can't leave.
I'm honored.
Now you can't leave, like the movie. Listen, you know, we were talking about something right on the break, talking about ADHD and that it may be the next iteration in intelligence. I sometimes think that it may very well be. I always wonder the people that truly have it, not the people that have been chemically induced or when kids don't want to make any effort, that's the excuses that are made. But it's interesting as I engage both you and George, that some of the similarities that I see, these patterns of high intellect or high mental acuity. But look, let's just dig in here. Your parents probably, are watching it, and they've been watching it for a while, coming from Russia. You always had to watch what was going on and what the true narrative was coming out of the powerful institutions like government. Anti-Semitism, it seems to be on the rise. And I guess I want to ask you, what do you see in the school system? Maybe you probably, because of education, are paying attention to the campuses, progressive spaces, and I always think that anything that caused division when it comes to the people that are pulling the strings from behind the scenes, of course, that's what they love to do, cause division, and anti-Semitism is just another example of that. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to say that there's real anti-Semitism, and then there's anti-Semitism that I would consider, I don't want to say fake, but it is fake. For example, a lot of people are talking about, conservatives like Tucker Carlson, who may not be a very pro-Israel person and definitely is not supportive of Israel or supportive of the United States war in Iran, as anti-Semitic. Is Tucker Carlson anti-Semitic? No, he is not. I met him. I was wearing, a hostage pin when I met him, and he was one of the nicest people, if not the nicest person I ever met in politics, ever. So there's real anti-Semitism where there's, actual Jew hatred, not just hatred or dislike for Israel as a state. And there's real Jew hatred out there. And that mostly is facilitated by the left. It's mostly facilitated in college campuses that we saw protesting Israel and the Hamas war, and just completely blocking students out, stabbing students that are of Jewish ethnicity. And it was a big, big issue. That was obviously stopped by the Trump administration. But then there's this rising narrative that some things are anti-Semitic when they're just not. And that is also a threat. It's a threat not only to the anti-Semitism, but it's a threat to, the entire conservative movement. Because when you start calling people anti-Semitic, it's the best way to get people disengaged from, the people you're calling anti-Semitic. It's also the biggest threat possible to anti-Semitism, because real anti-Semitism is now going to be thrown in this bubble of anti-Semitism where if you criticize Israel, you're an immediate anti-Semite. So it's a balance. There's no clear answer. I think in general, when it comes to actual racism, real racism, not just the ridiculous left-wing, DEI, CRT, reverse racism, but real racism, when it comes to hatred for someone for just being a certain way, that in itself is being hurt by fake racism and by narratives that are not true. Whether it's that, for example, Black people today are worse off because of their skin color, or that Jewish people are, if you criticize Israel, it's an immediate criticism to Jewish people. That fake anti-Semitism is overtaking the real anti-Semitism and the real racism movement. So there needs to be a divide here. But the issue is that there's a lot of gray area here, because yes, obviously, if you criticize Israel, you're not a Jew hater, or you don't necessarily have to be a Jew hater. But at a certain point, it does come to when you are, bigoted against Jews, when you're targeting Jews in particular, then it eventually does become anti-Semitism. It's not a clear divide, but it's definitely not the answer to say that, with any criticism of Israel, and I as someone who supports Israel, I don't take criticism as Israel personally, and no one should. And that is one of the main issues in general with this podcast wars that we are seeing in the right.
So
Yeah.
I
No,
agree.
you're right.
Lance, hold on. I agree with you a lot, because look, I support Trump. I love Trump, but I criticize some of the things that I don't agree with. I'm going to voice my opinion. I have family in Israel. I criticize some of the things that Israel does too. Not everything, but some of the things. It's just, listen, and there's other countries. I criticize Russia, but regardless, there's so much infighting going on amongst big conservatives, especially on X. And, you just said it. You said it perfectly. I like the way you said about Tucker. And you're 100% right. But other people don't see that. They just want to keep hammering away. Those are the people that are causing chaos, that want us divided. And I said this last week on the show. These are influencers that are getting paid to suck D. They'll do whatever they can just to get that money and say whatever they can. And it's the same group of people, and they're just causing so much division. If we were to go into midterms right now, we'd be done with. I still don't see a path. I don't know how you see it for midterms, but as of right now, we're screwed.
Yeah.
You know, I think you just described, you did that so perfectly, Gregory. And it's, I got to say, for especially not only because of your age, but just in general, most people don't get what you just said. You know, if you take the 10 points and the far, far right and the far, far left, we can't really ever hope to make any sense, whether it's somebody on the far right, some kind of anti-Semitic or Semitism, or whether it's racial disparity where they're, you know, end this and, you know, kike or Jew this. We're never going to get those people. And just like on the far, far left, I call that the mental health crisis part of the country population. We can only hope to unify the country, in my opinion, in the 8 points in the middle.
Yeah.
But of course, they don't want that. So if they want to labeling something, oh, that's anti-Semitic. I agree with you. Listen, Israel has some policies that I don't agree with. I'm not anti-Semitic. That would be ridiculous. I'd have to hate my own mother. I'd have to hate myself. But at the end of the day, every country has an agenda, whether it's Israel, Russia, China, and that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to make their own countries great. The U.S. Should be
It's the
focused
methods
on
of how they do it, though.
Yeah, but that is a tool, right? Because if they can get you and I to hate each other, or George and myself to hate each other for whatever reason, skin colors or political ideologies or religious beliefs, you know, that's the key. Because let's face it, if you unify people, and that's what happened in Russia when Russia fell, there was a real unification of the people there. If you get people unified, well, in this case, take the illegal immigrants out. There's probably 300+ million of us here in the United States. If that's the true count, forget the 35 or 40 million that might not be here legally. You know, if we unify, what does Washington, D.C. do in that situation? Or what do call it deep state or narrative control operation? What do they do? So, of course, a lot of this, and when you look at influencers, listen, there's paid opportunities all the time. We've been offered paid opportunities that would have made George and I have to change our core ideologies for one way or another. You can take the money if you want. There may be some cases, whether it's Qatar or whether it's Israel or whether it's other agendas, but there's no transparency. It's not like, you heard us at the beginning of the show, mention a sponsor. This is a paid sponsor. We get paid by Rumble. There's certain deals we do. We've got our own paid sponsors. But you're supposed to clarify that. The problem is, just like Congress, I've always said that they should have to wear NASCAR jackets. And the minute they open their mouth up on the halls of Congress, they should have to go through a list first. I'm paid by Pfizer. I'm paid by Halliburton. I'm paid by United Defense. You know, I took money from here and there, because that's the difficulty. I know that's ridiculous, but there's no transparency. We don't know who's paying Candace Owens or even Tucker Carlson. And I don't blame them for taking the money, because to fund these shows, it's never easy. But at the same time, if you sell your soul one way or the other, and you're not allowed to talk negatively. There's one group out of Chicago, and they made us an offer. You couldn't talk negatively about Jews or Israel. You couldn't talk positively about Muslims. You couldn't talk about election integrity. Came with a whole list. We didn't take the money, but a lot of people do, because they're willing to sell themselves. And that's the difficulty, especially on young people, that there's so many paid marketing schemes out there, and that includes anti-Semitism. I'm sure there are people that probably are paying to get anti-Semitic comments from certain people. I don't know if that's out there, but I would assume so, just like positive comments. And it's a slippery slope, but you did it so well because you differentiated the two, because just because I say something about Israel doesn't make me anti-Semitic. If I say Israel is controlling too much of the narrative here and there's too many influences within Congress, I don't like lobbyists. I don't like super PACs or foundations or NGOs. If I was Donald Trump, if I was president tomorrow, I would pass an executive order. It wouldn't hold after I was out of office, but I would say that's it. No more lobbying, no more foundations, no more super PACs, no more NGOs, no more dark money or foreign money. You get caught doing it, it's a mandatory 10-year sentence. Do not pass go immediately. Now, as excessive as that sounds, maybe we'd have a cleaner a line of communication or information for people. I don't think it's possible, but I think if anybody wants to get an answer on they ought to come to you on anti-Semitism, because that was about as clear a message. You did that because I agree with you. 95% of what you just said, I agree, which isn't always easy to do, that you can so clearly define what's out there, because, of course, It's a struggle, and they want us to struggle. They don't want us to have a clear message, because if we get a clear message, maybe there'd be more unity. Because very often we've engaged liberals and nonpartisans. We agree on 80 or 85% of the, we want safety and security. We want low inflation. We want opportunities and protection for our children. We don't want to have to walk the streets and worry about somebody randomly punching us or stabbing us. It's all of a concern, which brings me to my next thing, immigration enforcement, border security. Let's talk about some of that, because you've addressed this over and over again. I've said it, we have to get our own government to agree that illegal immigration and the individuals that were brought into this country by the Biden administration and others couldn't have been worse. You're seeing it firsthand in New York. Take it from there.
Yeah, definitely. So first off, obviously, immigration, illegal immigration in particular, is a crime. If you are an illegal immigrant, the United States has not only the ability but the duty to deport you. It's a law on the books. It's a law that the executive has to enforce. So not enforcing that law would be the most anti-American thing to do. Not enforcing a law that Congress has passed, that the president has already signed off on, and the executive branch has that duty of enforcing the law. So under the Biden administration, when they were not enforcing the laws, they were going against the Constitution. They were going against the duty that they have as an American branch of government. So now under the Trump administration, well, obviously it's very easy to talk about mass deportations. It's very easy to want mass deportations, as I believe the majority of the Republican Party wants. However, executing mass deportations now has been proven to be extremely difficult. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Number one, it's not necessarily very popular on the, when you're on the centrist approach. When you're more towards the center of Republican and not a real MAGA Republican, then you are going to be against mass deportations, because you are going to think that, you're going to be more sympathetic rather than enforce the law. And that has been one of the main reasons why it's difficult to have mass deportations under the Trump administration. But by far, the main reason why it has been extremely difficult for the Trump administration to actually execute mass deportations is because of the political messaging that we are sending out, the PR that we are sending out to the public. The public has this narrative by the left, which the left has painted perfectly, that ICE is a terrorist organization, that illegal immigrants are here to stay, that ICE is killing American citizens every single day. And when that is the narrative that the public is being fed, that the public is believing, then of course they're not going to want mass deportations. Of course they're going to hate ICE. So that has been the main cause of this divide on illegal immigration. If you look 10 years ago, illegal immigrants in general have not been a very contested issue. If you're illegal, you're expected to be deported. It's not just, if you're an illegal and you committed a crime, then yeah, you're going to be deported. No, if you were an illegal immigrant, you were expected to be deported. The American people supported that. It was a very obvious issue. However, now this narrative of demonizing ICE agents, of demonizing DHS in general, of not funding DHS by the left has worked. And this narrative that the Democrats are pushing are getting the American people to question the own laws on the books they passed. And that is the biggest issue here, that the PR, the public messaging that we have, the public relations that we have with the U.S. government and the people is terrible, because the people are falling into the trap that the Democrats have set up for them.
Yeah. And, we always, on this show, we're equal application of the law, rule of law. The statutes are on the books. They're clear. And let's face it, there isn't any country in the entire globe that, legally, and I'm not talking about France or Italy, where we've seen illegal immigration, and of course the UK, we've seen the damage. I mean, they're ahead of us. We've already seen what's happening. We're seeing it all over the country. Of course, they try to sweep it under the rugs. They usually profile illegal immigrants as white men. Of course, when you see them, it's clear that they're not. But that's part of the agenda, right? That's all part of it. But let's talk about the Supreme Court, because this is a perfect segue moment. Anchor babies, of course, the hot topic. First time in history that a president, a sitting president, has sat and gone to the Supreme Court, which was, a big message. I'm not sure, what he was trying to accomplish by that, but even the media didn't cover that as much. They mentioned it, but it didn't seem like it was as big a deal to them. What do you think is going to happen here? The Supreme Court ruling, where do you think this is going? Let's talk about birthright citizenship case. Which way you think you're going to go? Because the oral arguments appear to be presenting one picture, but some people behind the scenes are presenting a different one.
Definitely. So I think it's important to separate the politics out of the actual constitutionality. So when you separate those two, you could think that politically speaking, the idea that birthright citizenship is even a policy in the United States should be struck down. And that's politically speaking. But you could say that constitutionally, you believe the 14th Amendment covers birthright citizenship. So that is a very reasonable argument. And that is when you ask, the majority of American people what they think about birthright citizenship, not constitutionally, but actually politically, that's probably the answer that they're going to give. No one believes that anchor babies should be an issue that the American people are facing, but it is. So now we turn constitutionally, which is how the Supreme Court, or at least most of the Supreme Court justices, should look at this issue. We have the left-leaning Supreme Court justices, Ketanji Brown Jackson, appointed by the Biden administration, a complete, I don't want to say not qualified, but I think that there are many other people that could do a significantly better job than her. Those are the justices.
She's not qualified. You could say it. I'll say it. She's a freaking retard.
You can throw down the gauntlet because I got to tell you, I agree. Listen, and that's the issue, right? The argument is that bias, when you put on the robe, your political bias, which a lot of times is based on your political appointment in that position, is supposed to be left at the door.
Yes.
And that's the struggle that somebody like Ketanji Jackson, when I think of lifetime appointment, I want to get my barf bag out that I've reserved from one of the plane flights and just throw up into it, because lifetime appointment is probably one of the worst things, just like absolute immunity. But that's the difficulty. Yeah. We're stuck with a weaponized judiciary. Go ahead, take it from there.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point, because it's not that justices don't have political views. All of the justices have political views, from Alito to Ketanji Brown Jackson, and they want to influence the court and the court's decisions based off their political views. The thing that separates those who actually influence the decisions on the court and those who don't is originalism and living constitutionalism. Living constitutionalism is the idea that you are, as a justice, you interpret the societal needs, the needs for society, what society is, going forward based off your position as a judge, and then you rule based off that. So whatever society needs in your perspective is how you're going to rule in living constitutionalism. That's this entire theory that the Constitution is a living, breathing document, meaning that the justices have a duty to change the document as society progresses. Originalism is the complete opposite. It's the idea that the Constitution is enduring. It's that it's dead. It's not going to move. Therefore, you have to, interpret the Constitution based off the framers. And if there's ever a discussion, that, this doesn't seem fair, I don't know, the framers believed in racism, for example, in that sense, it's up for the people to decide. You would leave it to the democratic process. So what we have now in our society today is we have three very liberal-leaning justices which influence their decisions based off what their interpretation of what society needs are. That's how Roe v. Wade, for example, got passed, because the justices on the Supreme Court believed that society now is, in progression of abortion is now a right of the women in the United States. And that's how we get these new rights that were never actually protected under the Constitution, protected under the Constitution. Originalism says the exact opposite. It says that if there's a right that's contested, if there's a right that the American people, that society actually wants to be protected, then society can go through the democrat process and actually, elect or vote for a new amendment in the Constitution, or just use the laws on the books to protect a right, and it could be done democratically. That's the complete opposite way of the liberal-leaning justices. Therefore, my point is that these three liberal-leaning justices, because of their view, because of their theory of interpreting the Constitution, they are never going to support the idea that birthright citizenship isn't protected by the Constitution. Not only because of their own political leanings, but because birthright citizenship has been embedded in American society for decades. So according to their perspective, they're not ever going to strike it down. Now, some of the conservative-leaning justices or originalist justices think a little bit differently, and they think that it's somewhere in the middle. It's yes, we respect society's progression, but we also want to interpret the document as it was meant to be interpreted at the time it was written. These justices tend to value president much more than the actual text of the Constitution. And when you value president, then you're very unwilling to actually overturn certain rulings. You're very unwilling to stir up something, stir up controversy in your position as a judge. So these justices will also likely side with the liberal-leaning justices of allowing for birthright citizenship in the United States. Now, for the justices that actually read the text of the Constitution, actually interpret the meaning as it was meant to mean, and I believe it was in the 1870s when the 14th Amendment was written and passed, those are the justices that are probably going to side with the idea that the 14th Amendment was never meant to cover illegal immigrants, the children of illegal immigrants, and it was never meant to cover anchor babies. Those are, though, maybe 3 justices on the Supreme Court. So it is not very likely that this ruling is going to pass. However, it doesn't mean that this entire birthright citizenship case is thrown out the window, because by far the easiest route to take this is by pushing it through Congress. If Congress could manage to pass a clause or a law that doesn't allow for birthright citizenship of illegal aliens, then because of the Establishment Clause and the ability for Congress to actually enforce the laws and enforce the statutes in the 14th Amendment, then Congress would actually be able to strike down birthright citizenship. However, in order to do that, you would have to go through Congress. And as we know, Congress does not do anything. And it's going to be in Congress for 10 years. So, you know, it's the most practical way to do it. But because our Congress is so bad, because we have rhinos in our Congress, I don't know how likely it is to pass. So the moral of the story here is that birthright citizenship is a very good policy question. It's it's very obvious in terms of policy, but the Supreme Court is never going to allow it in my perspective. However, the only way we could do it is through Congress, but we're not going to get anything done in this Congress. So focus on removing these rhinos. And this midterm, I am unfortunately not very hopeful for. But if we can remove a few rhinos, and I don't know, maybe in 2028, we'll have some epiphany, and the Republican Party is finally going back to how it was in under the Biden years, where we were very unified against the Democrats, then maybe we could actually get something done then. But again, I'm not very hopeful in the near future.
I don't think any of us are hopeful at this point. I think it was well said what you just.
Gregory, somebody in the chat wants to know if you have a girlfriend.
No, I don't.
Single like me, that's my bro.
Look, you just nailed that. I don't know what I can add to that, but it's complicated. I'm a real believer in what the founders and framers had intended. 17 subject matters specific to the Constitution. And I believe at this point we act often, and it doesn't matter whether it's at the district court level, appeals court level, we procedurally block rather than look at what the fundamentals are of constitutionalism and protecting the rights of others. The procedural blocks that are put in place about, you can't use this document, you can't use that, rather than looking at the actual issues, the facts of a case. It happens too much. I talk about a lot when it comes to the criminal justice system. Listen, any mathematician would tell you that a 96 or 98% conviction rate is physically impossible. AI would tell you that the only way to do that is to cheat. You can ask any one of the AIs about our current justice system. And it's hard because limited government is what the plan was, yet we bring so many things to the Supreme Court over and over again. And, look, just as something as simple as the Second Amendment, shall not be infringed when it comes to our right to bear arms. They did that as a protectionist idea. I'm sure this government would be even worse if we weren't armed as an American people in the way that the manner of 400 plus million guns on the street, trillions of rounds of ammunition. I'm not sure what would happen if we didn't have that. Exactly. Listen, the founders and framers recognized it. They'd lived under monarchies. If you go back to really the founding documents, Magna Carta, and so many others, and you look at what they wanted to do, the grand experiment, we're freaking sure as far hella ways away from what the intent was. But I agree with you. This is it is a living, breathing document, and there do need to be modifications. But this Congress, man, they suck. This is one of the worst. We got one group, destroying the country actively through their policies. You got the other group stomping their feet. We're going to look at it. We're going to have subpoena. We're going to do this. And nothing happens.
Lance, I got to ask him a quick question because I know we're running out of time.
George. Yeah, we're out of time.
Who do you want to see to be Attorney General?
Oh, that is that is a question. I mean, if Ken Paxton is an option, I take him, but I don't think he's an option. He has to go into the Senate. But yeah, I really don't know.
Matter of fact, when is the runoff for that Texas primary?
May, I believe. But I don't think it matters. I think in general, the attorney general, whoever it's going to be, they're never going to do a satisfactory job because it's just such a deep state, or in general, with the DOJ, that you're going to put whoever you want there, and they're just eventually going to be controlled by higher ups, whether it's the Trump administration or not. So I don't think it's going to make a difference.
If Attorney General's got a pair of guts or balls or whatever you want to call it, and they just say screw them and start locking their asses up, you never know.
You could just
should
fire
you have
them.
a name?
Yeah.
No, I can't pick one person. I don't.
George, who are you leaning on, George? Because right now,
I want Sidney
Eagle
Powell,
Martin
man.
and Harmy Dillon. I keep seeing those names, and I'm not interested.
No,
in
Harmy
either.
Dillon's she's going to be like the third or something, he said.
Third.
Yeah.
I want to see Sidney Powell.
Yeah. I'd pick Sidney Powell if she was an option. I'd take her.
Yeah, I don't think so, unfortunately.
Why?
Yeah.
No, I don't think that she's an option. Not that I wouldn't want her, but
yeah.
I haven't seen her name floating around. I've seen Lee Zeldin, which I don't believe.
No.
But
that's one thing Trump has faltered in. All his AG picks have been busts. They all suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. Listen, we're out of time for today. Let's do this really quickly for you. Where can they get you? Of course, you are published in lots of places. I don't know if you have a Substack. I know you have social media. We followed you from a couple of our accounts. I just hit you up over on True Social also. George will follow you. I don't know if he's done that yet. Because we want to give you optics. I want to be able to repost and do that with you. Where can people find you? How do they follow you? How do they get more of what you've got to say? Because I have to tell you, I hope people listen to you more. You've got a very, very, I have to tell you, you have a very unique way of seeing the big picture. Most people can't see that. They don't know how enough to take away their own personal agenda. So amazing material you provided today. So I hope that the audience will take the short form and long form, share it far and wide, grow your own social media. But how do they find you? Give them the social media plug and give them anything else. This is the shameless plug. Go for it.
Yeah. You can follow me on X, just my name, Gregory Lyakhov. I also have my own podcast on YouTube called The Patriot Perspective, where you could just search up The Patriot Perspective on YouTube and you could find it there. And I post all of my articles and content on my X account, so you can read all of that there.
Gregory, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll definitely have you back on. Listen, you guys, you know the drill. Hit that follow button, hit the subscribe, leave a comment, and let everybody know. Again, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard. I'll be putting, if you haven't joined the community over on X, go over to the Big Mig Show, join the community. I've got a great interview coming up on Thursday, but you're going to have to go there to find out about it. I will post there in the next hour for that. So check it out, join the community, hit the follow button for G. Ballantine, Lance Migliaccio, and the Big Mig Show. You can find us on Gab, Getter, True Social, you name it. We're just about everywhere. And if you're on YouTube, hit us a follow there. And don't forget this show is also available in podcast on every major podcast platform. So if you're subscribing, if you're on Spotify or any Amazon or anywhere else, find the Big Mig Show and follow us. And don't forget the Crypto Power Hour, #1 crypto show on Rumble, 7 a.m. on Wednesdays and 7 a.m. on Fridays. Stick around for a minute, Gregory. I know George is going to have to bow out. George, last words, brother, as you head out the door with us.
Have a great day, Gregory. Thank you so much. We should bring you on again. We should do it like in every 2 week or like we do with Schwartz. We'll have fun.
I would love to.
All right, well, set it up, Lance. Set it up.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. That's
usually Friday's a good day. I don't know how your Fridays, but Friday's always fun.
Perfect.
You got the whole week. All right, everybody. Peace out. Love you guys.
I might have to let it drop. Said got it. Hella big, had the money back again. Like said had the money.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever. Visit CSPOA.org and join the Sheriff's Citizens Posse today. Make a difference. Stand for freedom. That's CSPOA.org. Your country, your fight, your future.
What if you could predict your financial future? And what if you could trade on it? Introducing Block Trust IRA, the future in your hands. An astonishing 88,000 millionaires were created last year from the Bitcoin boom, and you could be next. Block Trust IRA is the only crypto management firm powered by AI-driven strategies, ranked #1 in the world by Bitcoin Magazine. The Block Trust IRA platform is built for everyone, from first-time buyers to seasoned investors. Predictive AI technology that was once only reserved for insiders and elites is now available to you. It's time to leave the old buy and hold strategies behind. Your assets are protected with military-grade security, offline cold storage, and $200 million in insurance. Visit BlockTrustIRA.com to book your free consultation and ask how to claim up to $2,500 in deposit bonuses today. Bitcoin changed the game. AI changes the strategy.
Hi folks, I'm here today to introduce you to the Prepper Bar from PrepperBar.com, the most unique precious metals product we have seen in a long time. These 62-gram bars are perforated and easily broken down into your choice of 3 different sizes to fit a multitude of needs. Whether it be from asset protection from inflation, economic turmoil, or its unique utility for barter and trade, the Prepper Bar makes a perfect gift for all the precious metal lovers out there. Exclusively made here in the USA and selling out fast. Available in both gold and silver, these slim Prepper Bars fit neatly in your wallet, and their utility enables use in any situation.
Forged through rigorous training and honed by the finest instructors on Earth, these K9 units serve beside our nation's warriors as they fight to preserve what we cherish. When these warriors complete their duty, the Warrior Dog Foundation provides them with a home deserving of the service they've given us all. At our state-of-the-art kennels, they receive rehabilitation and care suitable for heroes, because that's what they are. Be a part of giving them a future today. Visit WarriorDogFoundation.org.